Hello, hello. Thank you again for joining me. I'm Nicole Glenn. I'm the co-host of the LLC podcast. It's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both personal and professional challenges our guests overcame, how their backgrounds help shape who they are today, and how they empower others, giving back to their communities and often the world. So today, joining me is Julie Conti. She is a co-founder of Rizonet Consulting, which is a certified woman-owned executive recruiting firm. She has over 15 years experience in talent acquisitions and human resources with expertise in recruiting, planning, developing, and implementing recruiting strategies, as well as training, development, and public speaking. So, Julie, I'm jumping in here because, as you heard me say in the beginning, that we're normally talking to professionals that come from logistics and supply chain, but little different today. I got to meet you at Women in Manufacturing South networking event and was just completely captivated by your story. And like, you have to come.
Thank you.
So really one of the things we're going to talk about Julie's business, as well as really her ideas and the ability to be a serial entrepreneur. So that's something that grabbed my attention because she just seems to be completely resilient and just dives into these businesses. And some of them I heard about, I was like, I'd pause for a second because they're just so grand to me on what you've done and the different parts of the world that you've been able to work in. So we don't need to dive into all your businesses, but I want to ask you just some simple things for our listeners to understand, what does it take to ultimately be a serial entrepreneur? So if I had to ask you a couple of traits, what do you think a person who dives into multiple businesses needs to have?
Definitely, they need to have big goals, and they don't really have to be defined goals. Like my goal was I wanted to be a multimillionaire business owner in charge of my own destiny, right? And how am I going to do that? I really didn't know. And so you're just kind of stumbling along the way and trying to figure out your path. And it's just really just always having your eyes on the end goal. And every person that you meet, believe that they've been put in front of you for a reason, either to learn from, or that they're going to give you a connection that you need, and that you don't bypass any opportunity to meet someone that comes across.
What would you say, you did just say something and it stuck out to me. I think a lot of people believe that business owners have everything figured out. They have all the answers and they map out this business on what it's going to look like 10, 15 years down the line. And I know that's not true because I've consistently learned, changed, and evolved over time. But with that is, what do you think people need to understand about risk and being able to jump in those types of things like you've done? Like, what's helped you be successful with doing that?
Right. The biggest thing that comes to mind for that question is, what's the risk? I don't feel the risk is losing at all. I think the risk is never taking the chance to try. So if I don't take the risk, where am I going to be? I know exactly where I'm going to be. I'm going to be where I was 15 years ago. I'm going to be where I was when I was 18, when I graduated college. I wouldn't move forward. So I feel that's the risk, is not trying and not going forward. Because
I was going to say that was a great answer because I don't think people look at risk that way. How did you get your mind to have that type of openness?
Well, I've had people ask that before, and it's taken years for me to just go back in time to, when did the light bulb click? And I truly believe the light bulb clicked when I was about 8 years old. And for some reason, my parents took us through this open house, this model home. And it was the most beautiful house I had ever seen. 2-story. It was, professionally decorated. And I was holding my dad's hand and I looked up at him because he's 6'4". And I looked up at him and I said, "Daddy, are we going to buy this house?" And he said, "Oh, no, honey, this house isn't for us." And I just looked at him and I thought, well, this house may not be for you, but this house is for me. And that's when my goal started. Like, I want to live in a house like that. I want to be successful, and kind of learned that if I'm going to do that, it's going to be, I don't have to ask anybody permission to do it. I just need to do it myself.
Mm-hmm. So you were young. I was young too. I remember approaching my dad at the age of 17, and I asked him for his, I guess, retirement fund. I was like, "Hey, do you want to open a Jimmy John's with me?" And he was like, "Nope." I'm like, "I did all the research. I reached out to them." And he was like, "Nope." So then I approached him again. There was this, we went on a family road trip, and there was this place called Backyard Burger. And I was like, "How about this one?" He was like, "Nope." So I started off trying to make a bunch of different businesses, even at a younger age too. So you think it might be something like that you're just kind of born with?
I
You want to be goofy?
So.
Yeah,
I do. I think so. And because I see it, I saw it in my dad. My dad's completely the same way that I am, and my mom is not, and my brother is not. So I think you're kind of born with it. My dad had big goals and visions, but he didn't have a chance to follow through. He died rather young, and so I feel like I take his legacy, and I feel like I just want to make him proud of me, for the dreams he had, and then I could continue them.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So where did you grow up?
I was born on the coast of Texas by Houston. I grew up in San Antonio. I went to college in Austin, and then I got my first job out of college in Dallas.
So you have been a Texas resident, a good portion of your life for sure, right?
Fourth generation Texan.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm newly added to the mix, not a Texan. I'm a Chicagoan. Yeah, well, thank you. I've loved it here. So I do want to just kind of dive into some of these questions because you selected some really good ones. What we do in LLC is we throw out a list of questions to our guests to go, what really hits home for you? What things would you like to talk about? And Julie dove right into the leadership category, which is one of the ones that I love talking about. And the whole concept of these questions is to bring light on your background, but then give some insight that will help our guests, move forward in their careers and do different things. So I guess when we're actually talking about men and women, do you think that men and women have the equal opportunity to contribute in their workplace?
Yes, I definitely do. My husband is my business partner, and we do everything together. This is our 7th company that we've started together, and we started our first company 4 weeks after we started dating, and it's just been a part of our relationship. We use each other's strengths and each other's differences to build a complete team, and so we don't compete with each other. We lift each other up. We motivate each other every day, and some days it's really hard.
I'm sure. So you've jumped into the recruiting side. I would love to hear a little bit about that business and what you're doing there.
Yeah, great. Yes, one of the companies that my husband and I own, we have to recruit engineers. And so for several years when I was working in corporate America, I was doing recruiting. And so with having the recruiting experience and needing to recruit engineers, we opened up a recruiting company to recruit engineers for our other company, and then as well as branch out and get more customers and bring in more revenue. It's kind of like already started, the model's already there. Don't miss out on that revenue also.
Mm-hmm. See, that's awesome. Like having the mindset of like, hey, this will help my business, but then in turn, how can we utilize that to help other businesses? And I'm sure that is a really nice segue. And then it almost pays for your recruiting expenses and some of your people ultimately that you have on staff. So I know recruiting can be relatively a high cost for companies.
It really is. And the turnover is what's really high. So we focus on finding a candidate that's going to stay. We want all the boxes checked. And, the commute, the pay rate, the PTO, benefits, the work-life balance, and the culture. We match all of that, plus the candidate's skills and ability to do the job.
Yeah. It is a tough thing matching people with companies. I think it's an ever-going either issue for some companies or companies like yourself that really help solve that problem and stay in front of it, is a big thing. So I just want to jump into this next question for you, which is really a statement, right? So for your industry or really business in general, like if you could teach young women coming into a particular space one thing, what would that be?
I would teach them that they need to stay focused and positive on their goals. Number one, don't worry about what your peers think of you, because you're not there to make friends. You're not there to hang out. You hopefully you're there to build a career, right? And so what I did in my very first career corporate America job is I set a goal to accomplish 3 things every week. So I was selling medical sales, right? So my goal was to introduce my products to 3 new physicians every week. And I kept a log of that. And then if I got more, then I did better. I exceeded my goal. And so I always was working towards something. And so, one day you're talking to a doctor and like, no, and you just feel so down. And then by the end of the week, you have 4 on your list. So you have to look at your accomplishments, not by truly how you feel, because you hear more no's than yeses. So if you go by that, you feel down. But if you look at what you did achieve your goals. And then by the end of 3 months, you've spoken to all of these people.
Yeah.
And so so it's, you establish your momentum or establish your guidelines, and then start the momentum and just keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to keep that consistent. I feel like as a sales rep before, I almost felt a little bipolar. I'd have these ultimate highs and ultimate lows of the day, and we don't celebrate our wins. It's very easy to have your eye on the wrong win. I think everyone looks at the revenue like, oh, I didn't capture that revenue, but you got 5 new contacts or you did something that will still benefit tomorrow. I think everyone's looking for that instant gratification, especially on the sales side. You want everything to be a clap and a win. So that's great insight, because I don't think people talk about that enough. It's okay to set your goals smaller that ultimately lead to the bigger goal. So
and we celebrate every win. We have a little bell that we ring when we're all together, and then when we're not, we have a text chat. We text each other, woohoo, I got a call scheduled, or someone gave me a referral, and so each of those could be your next big one.
Yeah, you just never know. So that's great advice. And so talking about advice, like what's the best advice that you ever got and took, or I love this part of the question, the advice that you got and you didn't take, and how did that change you?
The best advice I ever got was when I was in college. I was working in a lab with my professor, and so it was a job outside of my schoolwork. And my coworkers and I had a fight, and that it was an email fight. And so everybody was really upset and sending these emails back and forth. And later that day, he came over to me. He was very tall, a little intimidating. You're a college professor, you're a college student. There's these hierarchies in that world. And he came up to me and he says, "Julie, you can write the email, just don't send it." And that just completely changed my world. Actually, that's everything I do, everything I say, every step I take, I think about that. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel upset. It's okay to not agree with people, but keep your thoughts in check, keep your poise, keep your professionalism, find the right way to say it, and then you present yourself like that.
Absolutely. I used to have a mentor and he'd always say count to 10, because if you don't feel like you can calmly respond within 10 seconds, you say nothing. And then you think about that and you sleep on it, and then you come back the next day.
That's absolutely the exact same same concept,
Yeah, that's great advice. So when we think about success, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you really define? What's your definition of success look like?
My definition of success is waking up every day and to keep trying. So I feel like a failure would be when I would just kind of give up and stop trying. Because if you're not trying, like I mentioned earlier, you know exactly where you're going to be. You're going to be right where you are, right where you started. Mm-hmm. And if you don't try, then I feel that that's a failure. So my definition of success is just to keep moving, have your eye on your ultimate goal, and do little things every day to achieve those goals, and just keep after it.
So what characteristics, traits do you have? I'm sorry, I can't obviously speak for a second. What characteristic traits do you value in successful people?
I really value the positive mindset. Mm-hmm. Actually, every successful person that I speak to, that I come across, they're very positive people. And positive people have a certain way that they go through life. They don't talk negative about themselves. They don't talk negative about others. Their glass is half full. And that's why they're able to keep going, because they're living life, floating on the top, not, sunk under the surface.
Yeah, getting stuck in all the minutia, right? Stuff that holds you down. Yeah. I mean, that's a good concept there, because I agree with you. The ones who are the Debbie Downers are always looking for the negative. And I feel like when you have that type of aura, that's what you attract, right?
Yes, it is.
That's probably why you have had so many positive people in your life, is because you're carrying that aura of positive impact.
And I think that's why you and I connected at the lunch, because I could tell you were that type of positive person as well.
Yeah. The emphasis on, working hard and just keeping your eye on the prize, like you said, it lifts me, because then, you're focused on some of the smaller wins that bring you to where you want to go. So I know we've kind of talked on this question, but because you've taken all of these risks, with starting 7 different businesses. But out of everything you've ever done, what's the biggest risk you've had to take in your career, and why did you have to do that?
The biggest risk I had to take in my career was actually wasn't my decision. It was made for me by my employer. So I helped my employer grow their company to multi-million-dollar status. They sold it, and then the company that acquired us fired me. So at this point, I was working side by side with the CEO, and I had learned to run a company. I had all these years of experience, and I was running companies with my husband, like after work, and at that point, my husband and I decided, you know what, let's just try to do this, both of us not working. And it was really scary. I was getting up at 6:00 in the morning. I was going to the gym so I could be home by 8 a.m., to start the workday. And my husband's like, what are you doing? You can sleep till 8 a.m. And then we go to the gym and then come back and make some phone calls. And it was so hard. It took a year to transition out of that, the daily grind mode.
But then, well, you're so used to being an employee where people tell you what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And now you have no one telling you and giving you your roadmap.
Right. So, yeah. And so you feel like, I was successful when I did it this way. So you try to go, but then you find your balance and you actually find your own circadian rhythm, right? I'm not a morning person. That's why I would have to get up at 5:30 in the morning so I could be happy and pleasant by 8 a.m. at work. But now I can sleep to 8 a.m. and be happy and pleasant by 8:30. So
yeah, no, I get that. I am not a morning person either.
Yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with that.
Yeah, I could work till 2:00 in the morning, and I could just be going, and so it's really good. We have we're a global company, so there's always someone I can be talking to all hours of the night.
Are you a late night person?
Yeah, I do prefer to stay up. I have more energy, more ideas, and things start flowing like at 10 p.m.
That's so funny. So funny. Everyone's different. I don't think there's any recipe for success on your scheduling as long as you're hitting your main targets. And I've actually had debates with people about the early morning mindset, like starting at 5 a.m. and the whole make your bed thing. And I don't think that's required, but that's not for me to say. That's just how I operate in my world, right?
Right. Yeah. It's everyone has their own preferences, whether they're a morning person or they get more inspired in the evening hours. So you have to be true to yourself and do self-care, self-love, and like I said earlier, don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah, for sure. So hopping down to this other question of, we often hear that life and business is becoming even busier. What boundaries do you set for yourself, and how much control do you feel you have over your schedule and your life, being a multi-business owner?
Yes. Well, definitely for controlling my own schedule, we have 100% control of our own schedule, but I do time blocking. So I block off time for myself every day. I make sure I exercise and work out because I'm a better person. I'm more mentally focused, and I'm more physically fit, and I feel better when I exercise. And you have to put that as a priority, just like you eat lunch, you eat breakfast, you brush your teeth, you exercise. It's, for me and our family, that's just what we do. So that's one thing we always make sure we have. And then we block time off for work. So I have a Calendly link where people can schedule calls with me during these hours of operation. So it's like from 10 to 5 every day. So before 10, I'm taking care of myself. Then after 5, there's other things that we're doing. So I feel like we can really control our schedules, even though we don't really have anyone, air quote, answer to.
Mm-hmm. So how are you then with like short lead stuff? Do your employees ever come to you and need you right away and you have to say no because you're the way that you're scheduling things? How do you attack that?
Well, we touch base every morning, and I'll say, well, I don't have calls today, so I'm open. Or I'll say I've got a call at 10 and at 3. So then they know, about when I'm available.
Sure. So us logistics folks, our things pop up like last second. Everybody needs insight right away. So I'm not as good as you are with the boundary side of things. So did you have to go through anything hard to set those, or was it always relatively easy for you?
No, we actually, you have to fight for it because it's really easy for life to take over. You have you want to make those client calls, and you're thinking, oh, my competitions, they're starting at 8 a.m. I should just do it now and skip exercising or skip breakfast and just jump right in, and so you just kind of have to be okay with what works best for you, because I could do that for several months, and then I'm gonna, I won't feel good. I'll be physically down. I would be working so hard against a different clock that I wouldn't be as productive.
Sure. So with working against the clock, if you literally had an extra hour in the day all to yourself, what would you do with it?
I would probably find something else to organize.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you a computer person?
I'm a very, very organized, structured person. And I feel if you take the time to set something up the first time, then you can do it so much more efficient over and over and over and over again that you don't have to worry about it. So, for example, when I worked in corporate America, it's always dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Mm-hmm. So I would, I put, at one point I tried on all my clothes. I found out all the outfits what shirts matched with these pants and what jewelry I would wear when I wore that shirt, and what perfume I would wear with that shirt. Because when you wear that shirt, you're in a certain mood, and there's a certain perfume that goes with that, and that gives you power.
Yeah.
So I kind of had like 2 wardrobes, because one set goes through the dry cleaning, then you have the other set. Mm-hmm. So you set all of this up. So in the mornings, I wouldn't even have to think about what am I doing, how am I going to put all these clothes together? And I wouldn't buy very many clothes. And so then I would just go through, every morning, get dressed and go. And I looked, so put together, and everything was very structured. And so when you set up things, you kind of make like an assembly line.
Yeah.
And also in work, if you're finding yourself typing the same type of email over and over again, save it as a template. Don't retype everything over and over again. So I have so many templates and so many structured ways. And then it's easy, when you hire an assistant to bring them in, you already have all your templates, the way you want things, and it's easier to train someone to help you. And then you can delegate. So being organized, it takes care of everything else.
So you're a work smarter, not harder person, for sure.
Yes.
Something to live by. Yeah.
Yes.
You do any like food prep? Because I do that, and I've come to realize like I will never be without food prep again.
Yes, so we've been food prepping since probably like 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I don't leave the house without a snack and a bottle of water, or my refillable water.
Yeah.
And so then, I don't get hungry. I don't eat something that doesn't agree with me. Like if I eat too much sugar, then you don't feel good. I keep my physical stabilized, with sugar or water. I keep hydrated, and so I don't let my glucose go up and down. So then you can maintain your day and your focus and your stamina.
Yeah. Well, Julie, I mean, our 30 minutes is up. I can't believe it. I just looked up and went, whoo, we went over. I really enjoyed talking to you. I would love to have you give some insight on people if they want to reach out to you and, they want to learn more about you or your recruiting business or any of your businesses and how you were able to accomplish that. How do they get you?
The best way, I'm on LinkedIn every day. So it's Julie Conti. And the company there is Rizonet Consulting. And then my email is jconti@rizonetconsulting.com.
Awesome. Julie, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.